the first thing I do when I get home is I go to the computer and I stay up to date. I'm going to be the smartest guy in any room where discussion is about sales tax on medical cannabis. I'm going to be able to know who voted for it and against it back in the day when it was supposed to be all medicine. So anyway, I'm not going to spend all day talking about that. I'm just going to say that this is something we can do. And it's the low-hanging fruit. And it will form a conduit for home grow. Because if we're going to want to do what we can and go to the wall for 6.625%, it shows we're hungry, it shows we're hurt, it shows we're not getting enough, it shows we're serious. We bypass the low-hanging fruit, go ask for food somewhere, we're going to be kicked out and told go back and pick up the damn low-hanging fruit first, So that's what I'm doing. I'm saying let's pick this low-hanging fruit up. It's ours. We own that. It's a sales tax in a state where we don't tax medicine. It said that in Wikipedia until I found that, and Laura Carter got in touch with them for me, and instead of saying they don't tax medicine, it says they don't tax medicine except for medical marijuana in Wikipedia now. In other words, it's sort of like everybody knows we don't tax medicine, because when the framers did this of the sales tax in 1966, they didn't want to tax any medicine, and at the time, the only two ways to get medicine were over the counter. You go in and buy aspirin, or you get a prescription.
Right.
There was no other way. Nobody thought, well, maybe something called a physician-recommended medication might come along, and we should include that. There was no. It's called intent.
Right.
The sales tax violates the intent of the law, and the people who collect the tax, the people who assess it, the division of taxation. They want the law passed that would get rid of it. It's official. They studied it, and they did. So we hold all the cards, and we're not playing them, and I couldn't be more. Bill Caruso. Here's a man who would agree with me 3 out of 4 times, and we both turn our heads and have a soft discussion when we don't agree, because he's one of my best friends on this issue, and he's one of the very few people here, Lefty and Bill, who met Cheryl.
I'm learning, too. Look, no time today.
Yeah, look at that.
A little bit of a dress down look for
Listen,
you.
if you only have a minute, would you sit down and talk with? Because like.
I promise people I won't get myself in trouble though, because
No, I'm just saying that we want to take advantage.
There you go.
We have you have an expertise from and see things from angles that we are not privy to. And I like, and we never ask you who said this or who said that, but when you explain how things are going and why this might not, everybody should listen. And you're not going to be right all the time, but you're right more than about anybody I know. And I know a lot of people.
And I appreciate that. And I think from my standpoint, I'm learning a lot as I'm going on the advocacy side. I wasn't an advocate. I was a staffer, frankly, for most of my career. And then
that's where we met.
Yeah, and listen, you educated me. I told a group last night. I was up in Hudson County, speaking at the Hudson County Chamber of Commerce. Invited a group of people up to talk about where we are, which is sad. But my entire professional life has tracked the policy level discussions of medical cannabis. 1996, California legalized medical for the first time. And I started working in government in 1997. And so cannabis policy kind of became a thing where, I guess it was a thing previously, but it really became a thing then.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember trying to educate a United States congressman and like literally as 22-year-old guy driving in the car, talking about this sheepishly. And he, his drugs are bad, all drugs are bad. What are you doing? That's crazy.
This is your boss.
And fast forward, you changed his mind.
Cheryl changed his mind.
Well, you both did. And I think it was your courage coming down, your frustration in our hallway of not being able to get in to see legislators. But Jim and Cheryl came down to Washington. Cheryl was actually at that time, I think, fairly sick and now on a gurney, not in a wheelchair.
Yeah, she's laying down.
And you were wheeling her around the the federal capitol, trying to get meetings with congressmen and women while you were down there. And I think when you came to us, extremely exasperated.
I came to all 13 congressmen.
But I think you were towards the end of we were towards the end of the day, and I think you had said to me, I remember this.
Nobody else.
Every single person has denied us, and we haven't even been able to get inside the room and the door.
Saying we'd go to your office, whatever office you want. Cheryl, will travel to you.
And you did. You drove all the way down to D.C. and met down there, not even in New Jersey. And so my boss decided to take the meeting. You weren't constituents. We used to have a rule, generally it was constituents, but he'd take people from New Jersey if they were down. And I remember walking in and saying, hey, there's this guy here, and his wife is in a stretcher. And so I'll tell you a funny thing. He came back to me and he goes, go back to this point. He's wheeling his wife around in a stretcher, and why can't they come in to meet with me? So we did.
Because she's in a stretcher.
No, he didn't understand why we were blocking you from meeting with him. And I said, they don't have an appointment, and yada yada.
He did his job.
He was like, and I said, you're not for this, right? Like, as a staffer, it's like, this is going to change anything here. And it did.
Yeah.
You came in with Cheryl. We spoke for a while. I remember. I knew he had a vote or something he had to get to, and I think that passed. And we sat there, and I remember there were tears and an honest moment from him where he looked at you and said, this is out of love. This isn't out of anything else. And I was wrong. And I remember saying that as a staffer, hearing my boss say I was wrong.
Never heard that before. I
haven't
heard
hear
it
that
since.
from public officials.
And what he did was phenomenal. He came back. He put a short letter and gave it to me, a copy of it, and said, if you want to lobby other congressmen, you tell them, talk to me and give them this. And it said I was moved to change my position on the issue due to your heartfelt arguments. And when he said I was moved to change my position on the issue, there is no bigger kiss of death, a flip-flopper saying I changed my issue on, it's sort of like something you generally try not to say. And
especially in politics.
And it did kind of work, but not in the way.
Introduced a human element to
It did work. Just so, and the end of this whole segue
it was unselfish too.
It did work, but not in the way he intended, because another used to be my congressman, Frank Pallone, promised he would talk with Cheryl, and then with Rob Andrews.
And
when I gave him a letter, and 6 months later she died, and then I saw Rob walking across the Capitol when you could walk across the grass at the Capitol, and we talked, and he said he hasn't talked to me, and Cheryl just passed away, and I was down doing business, hooking up a memorial at the Supreme Court, and so I confronted the Congressman Pallone about that at a public venue. And then I picketed his home where he lived, 1175.
Blah, blah, blah.
Ocean Avenue. No, 1175 Ocean Avenue in Long Branch. And I picketed him where he lived with Cheryl's letter to sign. It said, here lives Congressman Pallone. He lied while my wife died. I didn't mention the big M word. I was made to leave by police. I came back in the morning. I stood up for my constitutional rights. They didn't go to church that morning because he would have had a ride right by me. And trust me when I say Sarah wears the pants in that family. It's a good thing because she is assertive, and she's really the force in a lot of his success. And I'm saying that, giving him credit for it, knowing when to take her advice and all. But I'll bet he was angry.
Pissed that day.
Because he couldn't. I held them hostage, because his opinions were affected my family. So my actions and my opinions then would affect his. But I never looked at the house. I made no noise. I walked back and forth. I turned away from the house, I didn't stop people, talk to them when they went by. So did I win or did I lose? Oh, he then changed his vote on, if you remember, Bill, it was I think it was Bill McCollum's vote when he was a congressman, the sense of the House resolution that marijuana was a dangerous and addictive drug and should be not legalized by any states. It was a chest thumping, see who, pick a side of the fence and vote. And he'd always voted with that. And
but I'd say this to you about where we are. Your advocacy, and I think the other thousands and thousands of patients that have been out there who are sick, by the way, in advocacy,